With Saudi Arabia, you get the best of both worlds. Envision long stretches of desert flanked by soaring buildings. Here, severe regulations and oil aren't the only issues. Have you ever heard of a football club whose superstar players have all lost limbs, or a beauty pageant using camels? Come explore this one-of-a-kind kingdom with us as we uncover 15 peculiar items. Number 15. No love in the air. I bet you didn't realize that there's a spot on Earth where Valentine's Day isn't celebrated with the usual abundance of candy and presents. Well, that's the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The question of why so many Saudis associate Valentine's Day with Christianity needs answering. Their interpretation is that it is about a saint who was severely punished for his marriages to those who were not legally married. In addition to the narrative, there are those who believe that commemorating the day can encourage inappropriate behaviors, such as dating outside of marriage. This is when it starts to sound like a movie. Every year on Valentine's Day, there is a vigilant organization known as the Religious Police. They aren't on the hunt for villains, but rather for lovable heart-shaped objects, chocolates, and red flowers. The consequences for selling or purchasing them might be severe: fines, prison time, or even whippings. However, anything is possible when one is determined. Everyone keeps celebrating even though it's illegal. It's like a game of hide and seek. To thwart the authorities, some astute store owners may disguise their Valentine's Day treats in other hues. Some people may try to sell them using hidden code phrases. There's an underground Valentine's Day market, where rare items fetch high prices due to their scarcity. To avoid this cunning game, some people choose to purchase presents online, or make a short journey to a neighboring nation. Now for the exciting part. If you're not a Saudi national but live in the kingdom, you're free to have your own Valentine's Day bash, but only at your residence. Rule number 1. Don't tell a soul. Don't brag about it outside, and under no circumstances should you share photos from the celebration on social media. Number 14. No sorcery, no witchcraft permitted. Magic has a very low social status in Saudi Arabia. All things magical, including reading about wizards and witches, casting spells, or performing magic tricks, are off-limits. They are a religious people that take their faith seriously in this nation. Sorcery and magic, in their view, are the same as professing false beliefs about their religion. Not content to just state "no magic, please," the Committee for the Promotion of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice, CPVP, exists solely to address this matter. The members of this squad perform duties similar to those of both magicians and educators. They expose the dangers of magic, track down magicians, and confiscate their magical artifacts. This enchanted quest began in 2009 for the CPVP. They discovered a large number of magicians, including foreign workers, who were harming others with their spells. Some of these so-called magicians were really Saudi nationals. They claimed to have magical healing abilities, the ability to fly, and even magic books and movies. Who can forget the enchanted realm that Harry Potter created? Harry and his companions are not welcome in Saudi Arabia. The CPVP group has confiscated and destroyed several Harry Potter books, toys, and other artifacts associated with magic because they feel these tales might distort children's brains. Number 13. Water is too expensive. Is the idea that water costs more than oil in Saudi Arabia plausible to you? Indeed, it is correct. There is a severe water shortage in this area of enormous deserts and scorching heat. It's not just about the price. It's also about the restricted availability. Because of how rare and valuable it is, its price sometimes exceeds that of their famed oil. Saudi Arabia's water cost 9 cents USD QM in 2019, according to the World Bank, but oil cost just 6 cents USD/L. The price of water is about 1.2 times higher than that of oil there, according to your calculations. Despite being encircled by miles and miles of desert, Saudi Arabia manages to collect only 89.5 cubic meters of water per person every year. You can see the significance of this when you compare it to the world average of 6,000 cubic meters. Do you happen to know where they obtain their water? Mostly from the ocean and the earth. Most people rely on groundwater for drinking and other uses, But this resource is rapidly diminishing. Half of the salt is extracted from salt water using a very complex procedure. However, purifying salt water is an expensive and energy-intensive process, and you can probably guess where that energy comes from. Approximately 15% of it is oil. More people, more cities, more industries, and food-growing farms all contribute to the rising need for water. There were 35 million inhabitants in 2020, and projections indicate that number would rise to 45 million by 2050. A staggering 80% of the world's freshwater supply goes toward farming. All that water for something that contributes just 2% to Saudi Arabia's GDP? Impressive. The question then becomes, how will we resolve this complex issue? Saudi Arabia is making a number of efforts, including increasing water prices, decreasing subsidies, and encouraging reduced use. One such initiative is Qatra, which aims to reduce water use by 43% by the year 2030. Number 12. The moral police. Immerse yourself in Saudi Arabia and meet the fascinating mutaween. It is the responsibility of these individuals to ensure that everybody adhere to the Islamic law, which is a heavy burden. The band first appeared in 1940, but they didn't achieve major success until the 1980s. Why? For the simple reason that Saudis sought solace in their religion following upheaval in Iran. After all, how are the mutaween involved? Their work revolves on a term called hizbah. Their actions are guided by Islamic beliefs which emphasize the importance of good conduct and discourage negative behavior. What individuals dress, the presence or absence of male and female companions, and the frequency of prayer attendance are all factors that they observe. If you are found in violation of the regulations, the mutaween may take you into custody and turn you over to the courts. Thousands of volunteers and an additional 10,000 people labor behind the scenes for this massive organization, which also includes 3,500 to 4,000 cops. Such is their significance that they are led by a high-ranking government official who has direct communication with the king. The mutaween have their detractors, and that's where things start to get interesting. Although the mutaween's techniques are criticized by some for being too severe, they are adored by others who believe they safeguard Islamic traditions. This has resulted in a number of shifts throughout time. By royal decree, the mutaween are constrained in their actions by the Saudi monarch and crown prince. They can't, for instance, aggressively pursue another person or pester them with inquiries unless they have permission. Someone or something called Wahhabism is behind all of this. This sect of Islam has its roots in the early 20th century, namely in Saudi Arabia. As a whole, it is rather rigid and adheres rigidly to Islamic law. In their eyes, no one else can compare to them, and they are the genuine thing. Plus, you won't just find this kind of organization in Saudi Arabia. A number of other nations also have their own versions, including Indonesia, Sudan, and Iran. From Iran's Basij to Nigeria's Hizbah, and everywhere in between, these groups have a common goal: to guide their people in accordance with their beliefs. The moment has come for today's subscription decision. Curiously, women in Saudi Arabia stand boldly in their underwear while still wearing their headscarves, as seen in an image. Is the center of this historically conservative region seeing a fashion revolution? It might be an artistic statement challenging societal standards, or an underground movement that we have no idea about. Can you tell me the history? Is this an expressive event, a message, or just a crazy fashion bash? Use the space below to share your thoughts. Number 11. No birth control. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is rich in cultural heritage. Birth control is one of the most talked about issues there. Can I get my regular birth control stuff in Saudi Arabia, you may be asking? Yes and no, that's the answer. The nation generally has access to contraception, such as the pill, condoms, and those small devices called IUDs. However, obtaining them might be a bit of a challenge. Finally, the morning after pill is completely forbidden in Saudi Arabia. It may be difficult to receive these methods of birth control if you are not married. Why? because having sexual relations before marriage is strictly forbidden in Saudi Arabia. Are you married? Is a question certain stores may ask prospective customers before making a sale. The pharmacist's treatment of you may vary depending on your place of origin. Some Saudis may be more laid back with foreigners if they know you're not from Saudi Arabia. Number 10. Say no to PDA. So you're familiar with PDA, aren't you? Things like holding hands, embracing, or secretly kissing each other on the cheek while no one is seeing are examples of public demonstrations of love. While this may be ordinary in other countries, it is everything but in Saudi Arabia. Being a very religious Muslim nation, Saudi Arabia views PDA with disapproval. Why? The reason for this is because the Islamic legal code they adhere to, Sharia, is very stringent, and any kind of PDA is considered a major rule violation in this code. There are severe consequences for being caught, like paying a big fee, or even worse things. Saudi Arabia chose to clarify these restrictions a few years ago, in September 2019. In an effort to attract more visitors and demonstrate their nation's splendor, they compiled a set of rules known as the Public Decency Code. So what did you think was on the list? You read that right, PDA. There were 19 items that were forbidden under this code. If you break one, you can end yourself fined. Regarding sanctions, the maximum penalty for public insemination is 3,000 rials, or around $800. Not only does the Public Decency Code prohibit public displays of affection, PDA, but it also forbids littering, cutting in line, photographing strangers, playing loud music during prayer, and inappropriate clothing. A basic handbook for Saudi Arabian civility in public settings. Who is keeping an eye on this now? The General Authority for Tourism and National Heritage and the Ministry of the Interior are essentially the top brass around here. Making sure everyone follows the rules, they're keeping a close check on everything. Not only that, but other government entities and even private security firms are also keeping an eye out. Everyone is expected to adhere to the regulations, whether they are in a public area, be it a mall, cafe, park, beach, or even simply strolling down the street. Number 9. No cinemas ever. Let your mind wander to a future when going to the movies isn't as easy as a trip to the local multiplex. Seems absurd, doesn't it? For a long time, nevertheless, such was indeed the case in Saudi Arabia. Going to the theater was not an option. A little piece of background for you. The Saudis were moviegoers just like everyone else in the 1930s. But later in the 80s, movie theaters were heavily criticized. Critics of the film said that it promoted antisocial conduct and exposed audiences to too much Western culture. What exactly were their actions? That was the end of it. Also, movie theaters did not exist for a whole 35 years. Try to picture it. People still found methods to view movies, so it's not like they stopped altogether. While some people managed to smuggle in movies at home, others had to utilize those cunning satellite dishes. You had to go to neighboring countries like Kuwait or Bahrain if you truly desired movie theater popcorn and the whole movie experience. However, would you believe what? A refreshing shift occurred in 2017. As far as the administration was concerned, let's bring movies back. They aimed to bring more entertaining stuff in, shake things up, and get the nation humming with their plan dubbed Vision 2030. In 2018, which film was the top-grossing? Black Panther, a superhero film. There have been over 500 screens and a plethora of satisfied viewers chowing down on popcorn ever since that smash. As for the lofty goal, their goal is to have 2,000 screens and $1 billion in ticket sales by the year 2030. But Saudi Arabia isn't content to only watch Hollywood productions. The country also has tales it wants to share. Filmmakers are finding their establishments useful, and they are even inviting international teams to film in their breathtaking environments. Reopening movie theaters hasn't exactly been a picnic, however. Not everyone is pleased. Some people dislike certain movie sequences, while others just feel that theaters aren't their cup of tea. Let's not overlook the world of Netflix and relax. There's also the struggle of starting this enterprise from the ground up. Number 8. Gambling is a sin. Gambling is strongly rejected by Saudi Arabia. Why? Considering how seriously gaming is taken in our nation, there will be no places to gamble, not even for a little wager on a sporting event. Imagine severe consequences, such as hefty fines, prison time, or worse, if you are discovered. However, there are certain Saudis who have figured out cunning methods to bet. In order to access restricted websites covertly, they install specialized software on their computers called virtual private networks, VPNs. With virtual private networks, VPNs, they may access online gambling sites without ever leaving their houses. Also, consider the following: horse races. The hitch is that although one Riyadh club does offer raffles in conjunction with horse racing, it is not technically gambling. People don't really wager any money. All they do is fill out a form and say which horse they think will win. A reward awaits you if you get it correctly. Some gamblers are so devoted that they'll go to great lengths to satisfy their addiction. Open arms and large, flashy casinos await them in countries like Morocco, Egypt, and Lebanon. They may take part in the lively environment, play games, or spin the slot machines. However, going on a gambling vacation might be a real pain in the wallet. In sum, gambling in Saudi Arabia is like bringing sweets into a movie theater without permission. Though some do it in their own unique ways, doing so is never without danger. Even if they like the rush, they must use extreme caution. In Saudi Arabia, the stakes are very high when it comes to gaming. Number 7. Separate wedding ceremonies. Have you ever attended a gathering where the males and females were separated? Well, that's just the way weddings are done in Saudi Arabia. One distinctive feature of Saudi weddings is the practice of having separate locations for the bride and groom and their guests to celebrate. Sure enough, everyone knows that men and women need separate areas. Maybe you're wondering, how does this work this whole time? Let me fill you in on this. The bride's hangout spot is straight out of a fairy tale. There are flowers galore, candles that sparkle, and the most exquisite drapes. She's wearing a stunning abaya, a long and graceful cloak. On occasion, she may also choose to wear a headscarf or niqab to conceal her face. Regarding style, she is capable of changing her attire several times within the course of a single evening. Meanwhile, the groom and his pals are out having a good time. Wearing a thobe, a long white robe resembling a dress, the groom seems dapper. In addition to his colorful shema scarf, he may be wearing a beautiful cloak. I wonder what they're eating. Enticing meals. Imagine succulent lamb, light rice, sugary dates, and robust coffee. The best thing, however, is that despite their separation, the groom still gets to see the bride's side, but only with his dad. The bride and husband make a spectacular entry accompanied by traditional music, and then the most memorable part of the ceremony is about to begin: the ring exchange and cake cutting. You may be asking, why have separate parties? And we understand. Traditions must be upheld at any costs. When people in Saudi Arabia aren't married or very close, they're expected to preserve their distance from one another. Nobody will ever ask, "Hey, what's going on here?" if you do this. Their approach of maintaining decorum is just that. The best part, however, is that everyone gets to party it up in their own manner. The women may relax and have fun while dancing and chatting. There will be no criticism, just pure joy as the men laugh about, tell tales, and have a good time. Number 6. Amputee soccer team. The Saudi national soccer squad is second to none. Parts of their bodies have been amputated from every player on this squad. In 1996, a group of courageous men sought to play soccer despite having lost limbs for various causes. They formed their own soccer squad since they were so devoted to the sport and refused to let anything stand in their way. This group took their game to the next level and began competing in major events across the globe. Not only that, but they've competed in the GF Cup, Asian Cup, and Amputee Football World Cup. They rocked, not only played. In 2007, they took home silver in Uzbekistan, in 2018, bronze in Mexico, and most notably, in 2019, they earned gold in Bahrain. They've played friendly matches against Turkish, Brazilian, and German teams. On the other hand, it's not just about winning games for them. These athletes are trying to convey a message. that being different doesn't make you any less capable of achieving great things. The likes of these athletes inspire many young people who have suffered similar losses to say, "I want to be like them one day." People also learn more about individuals who are different from the norm thanks to this specific team. They share their struggles with the world and ask for assistance from everyone. Major Saudi organizations are enthusiastic backers of the cause. The Sports Ministry, the country's soccer governing body, and the Red Cross, an influential worldwide humanitarian organization, are both lending their support. Number 5. No rivers. Now this is just astounding. Not a single river flows in Saudi Arabia, despite the country's enormous size. There are absolutely no rivers. So, you may be wondering, where does this place obtain its water? To begin, large barriers called dams are often used to collect water on the few occasions when it does rain. They resemble enormous reservoirs of water, yet precipitation is an infrequent visitor, like a celebrity sighting. They have constructed 522 of these dams in an effort to collect and store the maximum amount of water possible. Subterranean resources are Saudi Arabia's water game's true MVP. This hidden reservoir provides the majority of their water supply. But there's a catch. The rain replenishes just a portion of it. The portion that does not is really ancient, as in prehistoric old, and it is depleting rapidly. A lot of issues are being caused by people using it up, particularly for farming. Also, don't discount the ocean. They have this neat skill where they can transform salt water into potable water. Their skill level is comparable to that of world champions. However, there is a dark side to this as well. Extracting drinkable water from salt water requires a lot of energy and isn't exactly eco-friendly. Finally, there's the water that we've already consumed and want to reuse. Imagine it as repurposing dirty water for other uses, like watering plants or chilling things off. The majority of the 2.6 billion bottles used in 2019 were reused. Number 4. Massive camel supply. I bet you image camels meandering across the desert if you've ever given the animal any consideration. Camel riding has become a huge cultural and commercial phenomenon in Saudi Arabia, although you may not be aware of this. To begin, camels have several purposes beyond just traversing sand dunes in Saudi Arabia. The locals there appreciate camels for several reasons, including their delicious meat, refreshing milk, warm wool, and sturdy leather. On top of that, having a fine camel is like driving the newest sparkling car. It demonstrates your riches and flair. The Saudi capital and our destination today is Riyadh. The largest camel market in the world is located here. It's like a camel supermarket with over 100 camels seeking new homes daily. And it's enormous, covering more than 2 square miles. So you're interested in the enormous camel market. It opens at 6 in the morning and closes at midday. People are yelling, laughing, and negotiating prices in an effort to acquire the greatest offers. Instead of being thrown into a haphazard heap, camels are carefully categorized, much like clothing or toys. They are categorized according to age, gender, race, familial background, and level of excellence. Extremely rare camels might fetch as much as $2,667 USD. But hold on a second, this is more than simply a camel market. It's also a lively festival. Local Bedouin merchants often bring their camels for rides and often sing to them as a show of pride. Number 3. Ban on women driving. Deep traditions characterize Saudi Arabia. Since 1932, the Al Saud family, a large and influential family, has been in control. Here, many things are governed by a stringent type of Islam known as Wahhabism, which is particularly prevalent among women. Let me tell you something that may shock you. Women in Saudi Arabia were not allowed to drive anything, not even scooters or cars, for a very long period. And it wasn't because of a codified statute. Rather, prominent religious figures warned that it would disrupt society. A woman risking driving despite the dangers might face charges, a fine, or even prison time. However, this was not acceptable to all women. In an effort to bring about change, several powerful women took to social media, signed petitions, staged nonviolent demonstrations, recorded films, and engaged in extensive online conversation. They want for the world to recognize that women should be granted equal rights to men. It wasn't simple, however, since the powerful didn't like it. On occasion, they would even fabricate allegations against the ladies who dared to speak out, leading to their incarceration. Meanwhile, in 2017, the monarch made headlines by announcing that women would be able to drive starting in June of the following year. It was a huge deal, and many were happy about the changes that were taking place, particularly because a young prince named Mohammed bin Salman was committed to bringing modernization to the nation. The surprise, however, is that several of the most vocal women who had been calling for change were detained just before women were given the go-ahead to drive. Many felt they posed a threat to national security. It was like a traveling carnival in June 2018. Women with foreign driver's licenses were able to get Saudi ones and travel at high speed. Men even showed their appreciation for female drivers by presenting them with flowers as a token of their "well done." On the other hand, there were those who were unhappy with the shift and believed that women should remain at home. Number 2, no work, all pray. The days in Saudi Arabia follow a unique pattern. No, it's not about punching a clock. Rather, it's about the 5 daily prayer pauses. Everywhere you look, from bustling city centers to little market booths, everything seems to come to a standstill. When people pray, the world stops spinning. When do they realize it's time to pray? Sunlight is the main focus. They follow its path across the sky to determine when to stop and pray. The Allura technique, which is Saudi Arabia's proprietary solar calculator, is used to determine this. The exciting part is about to begin. Picture yourself in the midst of a gift-buying or restaurant-eating spree when all of a sudden, prayer time rolls around. During this time, businesses lock their doors, households are silent, and individuals go to worship. This little intermission lasts just long enough to say a few prayers, 15 to 20 minutes. The closures may come as a shock to the uninitiated, but for the residents, they are an integral part of daily life. It's like a little vacation where they can relax, refocus, and get back to their religion. Making sure everyone has an opportunity to pray without interruptions is the goal, not making things more difficult. Number 1. Saudization. We all want our own citizens to have greater work opportunities, right? Saudization is the hip term used in Saudi Arabia to describe this phenomenon. The goal is to increase employment opportunities for Saudi nationals while decreasing reliance on foreign labor. Now we can get down to brass tacks. Non-Saudi employees have to shell out cash to remain on the payroll, and Saudis have exclusive access to select occupations. Think of it as a VIP ticket. It all began in 2011 when the Saudi Arabian Central Office for Social and Economic Affairs came up with the idea for a game called Nitakat, which means ranges in Arabic. Picture this. There are many levels in a video game, and each one is a different color. The first level is platinum, and the last is red. Companies want to achieve the platinum level. They enjoy special privileges and expedited procedures if they employ a large number of Saudi workers. However, problems may arise if they touch the red level, which indicates that they do not have enough Saudi workers. Why then did Saudi Arabia initiate this? Their goal was to increase the number of Saudis employed. There were around 13 unemployed Saudis for every 100 in 2020. Like having a lot of different investments, they wanted to make sure their nation wasn't dependent on oil for its wealth. They have this lofty goal of having Saudi Arabia be the talk of the world by the year 2030. Please return next time. Thank you for tuning in.